All right, hello everyone. Thought we'd make a quick video for all you people who suck ass at doing research and homework into the truth about Pecker Maroo and who and what they really are and what happened with this misconception and all the slander online saying that Pecker Maroo owns half of Australia. So I wanted to set the record straight first by saying that's absolute horseshit. Now, a few truths here. A couple of friends on we have Pecker Maroo, friend Brian. Now, all of us here and a few others around Australia all decided last year to register a few of the government departments as businesses, not because we wanted to own Australia or for any nefarious purposes, but to expose the truth that our government is in fact not a government and a bunch of companies, corporations and businesses who all have their own ABNs and ACNs. Now, this started out when a friend registered Victoria Fines and Fines Victoria, when he went to challenge a fine in Victoria and looked up who owns Fines Victoria to see someone hadn't registered the name. Now, a few of us, like those of us on the Zoom here today, got wind of this and we all thought that was a brilliant idea. So a few of us went nuts and registered a few of the business departments of the government for ourselves for the sole purpose of, one, exposing the truth that our government is in fact a company and a corporation and a business, and in fact not the government, and also so that our crooked, corrupt and tyrannical government could not use these names or these business names of departments against we the people. So nothing nefarious there. It was a bit of a coordinated attack on our government. Those of us on here today were part of that. There's a few others that aren't joining us today that also joined in on this one. Now, a lot of you are familiar with some of the names that Pecker Maroo registered. What some of you might be unfamiliar with is people like Brian and myself also registered a whole host of other business names and departments, supposedly part of the government, which again, they're not, they're companies and businesses and corporations. So I wanted to set the record straight and the truth about how all this happened and why, what we all did in order to do that. And question for you guys doing this, who obviously failed to do your homework and research into Pecker Maroo being some evil company or corporation, which they're not. If you look up some business names, like the ones I've got the business certificate registrations for here. Now, just to show you guys, these are the actual ASIC certificates for the businesses that we registered. So I have the Executive Office of EMFR for electromagnetic frequency radiation. I also registered the Telecommunications Office. Now, we registered a couple of other ones, and this was just to stop people being able to use it. Now, because Friends of Victoria were getting slammed, I registered State Revenue Office Victoria. We also then, because if people were going to complain, they would have taken it to the Office of Fair Trading, which I also registered. Now, the other one, which I can't believe I got, this one had to go through an ASIC for manual approval, and someone actually manually approved it. I hope you guys can all see that. That is Office of the PM, which I registered so that I now own Office of the PM. Now, Brian registered a whole host of names as well, including the Governor and Attorney General's office of every state, Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party and the One Nation Party and a few others. We had friends in South Australia who registered SAPOL and a few other names as well. Why is it none of you who are slamming Pecker Maroo looked any of these other names that we all registered up? Why am I not copying shit for registering Office of the PM? I have no intention of being the PM. I just did it so they couldn't use that office or that name against us. The same reasons that Pecker Maroo registered all the names that they did, again, to expose the truth that our government is a company and a corporation, and so that they couldn't use it against we the people. Brian, do you want to run through a list of some of the businesses that you snavelled when we all did this?
Well, I've got, there's my certificate there. I've got certificates for each one of these. Now, look.
You want to just read out your list? I know
Officer of Governor General, Governor General of Australia, Governor of South Australia, Governor of New South Wales, Governor of Queensland, Governor of Victoria, Governor of Western Australia, the Common Law Courts Australia and Australian Common Law, just to add a few names to that list. The mere fact that if this was running properly, I mean, if our government was running things as it should be run, we shouldn't have been able to do this.
Well, if they were actually government departments, we shouldn't have been able to register them as a business.
Well, no corporation can act for or as government. They're either working as government for we the people, or they're working for a corporation and they have nothing to do with us, we the people.
Exactly. Our private companies and corporations operating of their own private benefit against we the people, not for we the people.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So that's just a few of the names that I have registered, and it's the same as Zeb's gone through. For a number of those names, I had to get manual approval, and so some of those names registered straight away. Other names, they had to get back to me after manual approval. So they've actually looked at what I was registering.
And someone manually approved it now, I believe, for Pecker Maroo. If you guys want to say a couple of words there, some of your names had to go for manual approval as well. And we all got all of our names approved, manually or otherwise.
Yes, that's correct. We did it as a bit of a joke when we were all talking that time, and we started registering council names and Land Titles Office of Land Titles Australia, New South Wales, Service New South Wales, Revenue New South Wales, the Liberal Party of Australia, the Labor Party of Australia, and there's about 68 names I think Pecker Maroo has registered. But possibly one that comes to mind with many people talking amongst themselves is the Queen of Australia. So we couldn't believe that these names were even available to be registered, because most of these companies that are already collecting money off the people, we the people, they send out pieces of paper under these names and demand money from people. So we found it interesting that we could even register these names, because Zev and Brian, if you and us were starting a business, let's say, and we didn't register a name with ASIC, I wonder how long our businesses would last without registering the names and sending invoices to people and collecting money. But it appears that ASIC can have all of these corporations can have all of these trading names and send pieces of paper to people, and they pay them lots of money. So none
of these businesses were registered.
None of these businesses were registered. And then what we did was send letters to ASIC. Then contacted us and said, "Stop registering these names. You can't do it." And so we kept going at it. I think AFCA was one of them as well. But we've gone right through. Births, deaths and marriages, a couple of the other ones, but there's a lot of people know all those list of names. But the point is, then ASIC said, we want the names back and you can't have them. And then we've gone, no, offer an acceptance and payment of the money. You don't get to actually change the terms and conditions of the contract.
Let me explain this a little bit to the people watching and listening here, for you guys watching, as to what we all decided to do. So ASIC sent us all emails saying they weren't too happy about our names because they're undesirable to the Crown and Commonwealth. Now, to me personally, the Crown and Commonwealth are pretty undesirable to me, so I was okay with that. So because they sent us a letter making an offer to make amendments to the contract, which none of us were too happy with, we sent ASIC back a counter offer / offer to contract. And we acknowledged the fact in that notice that we gave them that they weren't too happy with the current names and they'd like to make changes to the current contract that we had. Now, as we hadn't agreed, accepted or consented to any of the said changes that ASIC were offering, we thought we'd offer them some changes to the contract that we would be happy to accept and consent to, since they made it very clear that some changes need to be made to the contract, and you can't make changes to a contract without all parties agreeing or accepting or consenting to that. So we sent back a notice of counter offer, notice of offer to contract, and we all did this with varying amounts on it. ASIC were kind enough to give us 3 options and 3 weeks to respond. So we put them on notice and we gave them 3 options of our own and 3 weeks to respond to our notice. Now on our notice, we gave them a few options, such as option number 1, I believe, was somewhere around the vicinity of $100,000 per day for using our business names, plus 20% of all takings made in with or in conjunction with our legally owned business names. Option 2 was they could buy these names back off us for between $10 and $20 million a piece. Option number 3 was the release of all the names and the trust accounts for the SQV, otherwise known as the strawman accounts, for a list of names to be provided at a later date should they choose to proceed with option number 3. We also put a clause in this notice we put ASIC on, letting them know that if they did not respond within the 3-week deadline, then tacit acquiescence would apply. And we may then, by their silence, enter them into a tacit agreement to one of the above mentioned 3 options. Now, with my names, for example, I chose to go with option 2, and I've then let ASIC know they now owe me $50 million. I believe they owe you, Brian, about $12 billion through the common law courts, which made a ruling that they had to pay Brian out for all of the names that he'd registered after we had them valued by a competent assessor and expert valuer. And I believe Pecker Maroo is owed billions of dollars for their names, for ASIC wanting them back as well. To date, none of us have received any money. And I want to make it very clear to everyone watching, it was never about the money. It was only ever about exposing the truth, the fraud and the corruption surrounding our government, and to take these names so that our corrupt, tyrannical, bloody, crooked, corrupt government could not use these names of these businesses against we the people. Now, the thing to point out, everyone watching this, is how the hell are they trading with all these names and sending bills and invoices and fines and penalties and all sorts of crap from these businesses which aren't registered? And how is it that we, 3 ordinary people, were able to register all these names to ourselves?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of truth for everyone. We'll get this video out online. I'm sure it'll go nuts and people see the truth about Pecker Maroo and what actually happened and who was involved with doing all that and why. Anything else you two want to add to this
I'd like
surrounding Pecker Maroo?
Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit there, Zev, is that the interesting thing was toing and froing with ASIC with our paperwork, the 3 of us. I also registered all of these names on the PPSR and what I had documented to ASIC and the amount of millions of dollars for each name if they wanted to take them back. I then registered everything on the Common Law Court Book of Deeds in the UK. So not only have they been registered with ASIC, they've been registered with the PPSR, and they've been registered with the Common Law Court Book of Deeds in the UK. So when ASIC decided that, no, you can't have these names and here's your money back, they've now changed the terms and conditions and started a new contract with which we did not have any agreement, and there was no like-minded agreement for any new contract. But it appears that ASIC can just change the rules as they suit and do what they like. So you might like to add a little bit more to that, Zev, as far as what ASIC have done with a new contract for the 3 of us with our names.
Yeah, well, look, the basic rules of a contract: offer, acceptance, joinder, mutuality, capacity, and legality. Now, the offer was available, readily available on the ASIC website. We engaged in and accepted that offer quite happily. There was a mutual exchange, a mutuality there to make the contract binding because they made an offer. We could see the benefit of accepting that. The mutuality, they accepted money by way of finalising that contract. This is why we all got sent business certificates and ASIC keys to the names of these businesses, making it all legal. We're all over the age of 18. We have the legal capacity to enter into a contract, as does the idiots from ASIC who signed off on all of this and manually approved some of our business names as well. So this covers us for the legal grounds and definitions of a contract. We've got the offer, we've got the acceptance, we've got the mutuality, we've got joinder, we've got the capacity, and we've got the legality. And ASIC decided they were outside of the bounds of law, as so many of these government businesses or departments often do, and decided they were just going to do things their own way and shaft all of us because they didn't want the truth getting out that people can register government departments as a business, because that's what they are. They are businesses as companies and corporations. They are not the government. And this is why this was tried to be covered up.
Yep.
Why information has been on the internet. It was none of us that suppressed any of that info. It's been ASIC and our corrupt government, or the corporations masquerading as the government, that have attempted to suppress the information to stop people knowing that our government is nothing more than a business or a company or a corporation.
I mean, our government can't even prove that it exists. It operates as a corporation with an ABN number and against the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia. I've got the documents here. It's registered, done in Bradstreet. It's got the addresses there for where they're registered.
So maybe we should mention to people too Commonwealth of Australia is a registered business with an ABN, and it has a CIK number as well, which is a number to register them on the American Securities Exchange. And the actual office for the Commonwealth of Australia is registered in California.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's the documents there. I mean, it says it's all
I can't see it with your background up there, Brian. But look, if anyone watching this wants to go online, don't use Google because you'll have the crap censored out of it. Go on Brave or DuckDuckGo or one of the proper searches, and you do CIK lookup, and you punch in the name Commonwealth of Australia. You will see the CIK number come up, and when you go through their details, their office, where the Commonwealth of Australia is actually located, is in California.
You can also go into ABN in a
ABN lookup, yep,
yes.
And you can look up there. Now, funnily enough, if you look at the ABN lookup, a lot of these businesses and stuff, they're technically still registered to all of Oslo, so people can search this up. But if you go on the ABN lookup, there's no Australia or Australian government anymore, or government of Australia. They're not trading, because if they were, they'd require an ABN. We don't have one.
Yes, I mean, yeah.
So more questions, what's really going on?
Yeah.
So adding to what you were saying, Brian and Zev, I'd like to also add that not only did ASIC just deregister everything with no new terms and conditions, the PPSR, which I believe and has always been told that the PPSR is a website where you can register your interest in something that you have paid for. So PPSR decided to just take all the names down without any notification. So there's another organisation, another corporation that just makes up the rules to suit themselves. So
let's just clarify, people watching who are unfamiliar with the PPSR. That is the Private Property Securities Registration. It's an Australian version almost of the UCC. It's a bit similar. It's where you can register your private property and your securities and supposedly have it registered privately so that no one else can touch it. Unless, of course, you're doing anything against our corrupt government operating as a business or a company. They can do whatever the bloody hell they like and remove what they like off the PPSR for you without your consent.
Yes.
Well, I hope that clears up for, we'll just keep this video nice and short there, guys, but I hope that clears up for you people watching what happened with Pecker Maroo, why all these business names were done. Have a search around for some of the other business names. There was a lot of us around Australia that registered a whole host of supposed government departments to ourselves as businesses, because that's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
They're businesses and companies and corporations. They all have their own ABNs. Don't match up with the government. Our government doesn't have one anymore. If you look it up, it's not there.
Yeah.
The only one that comes up is the Commonwealth of Australia, and they're registered overseas. It's a foreign power registered in California.
Further to what you're saying, Zev, is we've registered those names in the Common Law Court in the UK. They are registered, they have a number, and they are in the Book of Deeds, stating that we are the, in a sense, the lawful owners of those names.
Yep, and once again, our government not caring for the rules, the laws, or the legalities, and they do as they please, and they consider themselves above and beyond and outside of the very same laws they want all of us to abide by.
Yes.
And I'd also like to clarify to the rest of the world out there who think that Pecker Maroo are earning all this money, that we have not received $1 for all of these fun and games. So,
and to reiterate to everyone watching, guys, this was never about the money.
No.
It was about exposing the truth, the fraud and the corruption, and as a way of to try and protect we the people from the so-called government being able to use all these names against we the people. This was the reason this was all done.
Yeah. And of those names that we have registered, if everything was above board, we shouldn't be able to register them, because they would have already been registered to the ABN number that they've already got.
They would have all had the same ABN number if they were actually the government.
Yes.
None of them did.
And just to clarify, ABN, for those who don't know, is the Australian business name that, like I said earlier, they should not have even been available to even register. Australian business number, correction?
Yeah. Now, this is more questions for people watching. How was it we were able to register all of these names? It shouldn't have been possible to do.
Yeah, I mean, this whole government system needs to be restored. It is just absolutely corrupt. I mean, it's absolute corruption. It just corrupts absolutely. And I mean, this is what we're looking at. It's just disgusting what we, the people, have to put up with by this bunch, well, by this cartel that's operating as government under the colour of law.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, sorry, Zev, to just to maybe tell the people a little bit about the Queen of Australia.
Okay, well, let's fill people in on the Queen of Australia, who is a dead fictitious corporate entity who only exists on paper and who holds no land, seals or titles in accordance with the Royal Styles and Titles Act of 1953 and 1973, and certainly isn't bloody royal. So how the hell a Queen of Australia or any agent or representative of the Queen of Australia is able to grant royal assent to any act or bill supposedly being passed in Parliament is a mystery.
Yeah.
Queen of Australia cannot grant royal assent, nor can any of her agents or representatives, such as Governor and Attorney Generals. If you have a listen to any of the politicians being sworn in, including the PM and ScoMo, who swore his allegiance to Her Majesty, not Majesty, and the Queen of Australia, and all of our politicians, when they do their swearing in ceremonies, all swear their allegiance to this dead fictitious company and corporation known as the Queen of Australia. We do not have a Queen of Australia.
And people need to wake up and do their research. If more people woke up and did their research, they'd find what we found.
Yeah, and look, to fill people in, Queen of Australia was initiated in 1973 under the Whitlam government. So it's been around for a very, very long time, guys.
And the lawful seal to the Commonwealth of Australia, it's called the Great Seal. It's not the emu and the kangaroo. It has the lion and the unicorn on it.
Yeah, and it has the curvy top on the crown. They changed it in 1953
Yes.
to Mr. Edwards. So if you're going to be using a Commonwealth seal, guys,
It's imperial crown. Yes. So we need to get all that restored.
Mm.
So yes, I'm really hoping this video reaches a few people. It exposes the fraud and corruption and gets a bit of the truth out about Pecker Maroo so that people know there was nothing nefarious or evil going on there. It was just a group of us rather familiar with common law and realised there was a big hole in things, and we decided to make that hole a bit bigger and expose the truth.
Yeah. Yep.
Which they've tried to cover up the best they can, and yes, the rest is history.
Yeah, and they've made you guys at Pecker Maroo the scapegoats for their own cock-ups.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I just want to say again and just support what Zev has already said, that this was never about the money. It was always about exposing the corruption in all of this.
And the fraud.
Yes, and the fraud, yes.
And so to expose it, they've just made it more corrupt by just deregistering everything and giving us new contracts.
Yep, and trying to hide the truth.
Yep, trying to hide and once again cover up their own fraud and corruption with more fraud and corruption to try and hide the previous fraud and corruption. Seems to be a pattern from our so-called government in doing so.
Yeah, because they're all corporations anyway. There is no government.
Companies and businesses and corporations. And this is again, guys, this is why we did what we did, to expose that, bring out the truth and try and do our bit to stop the fraud and corruption and the tyranny from being imposed on we the people.
And every so-called department has its own ABN number. There's not
business. Yep, the TGA is its own business. The health department, they've all got their own numbers and ABNs and company numbers and whatever else. They're all privately registered businesses, companies and corporations, guys. I encourage anyone watching this, look them up. Punch in the government department and you'll see the ABN come up on the ABN lookup. Some of them are on the CIK lookup as well. State of Queensland, Queensland Treasury, there's a whole host of them from Queensland that are all listed on the American Securities Exchange with their own CIK numbers. So CIK lookup, ABN lookup, have some fun if you're watching this. Look up some government departments and business names and you'll see how many of them actually have ABNs and CIK numbers.
Yeah.
And traded on.
Well, hopefully that clears up a few discrepancies for the rest of the world.
Yes.
And that they actually learned the truth from this video today.
We'll see if we can get this to go nuts online. We'll get it uploaded soon, guys. And please feel free to share this around and get the truth out there about Pecker Maroo and our corrupt tyrannical government as well.
Yep.